Can you see us? Greetings, everyone. It is Artcasters. This is episode 200. I can't believe that we have made it to 200. And we took a little bit of a break. It's been a couple weeks. We were we were playing around with a few different ideas we want to do something big with this 200th episode. And every idea we had kind of fell apart, but then it just kind of, because we had to wait a week, and then what happened was everything kind of coincided with this sort of the shipping and the release. And there's Mike right now. I'm going to pop Mike in there. Okay. We got Corey's on the control here. So, but everything kind of coincided with the release of the 100s Anthology number 2. So we just figured, you know what, let's just have a big party. We'll get as many of the 100s crowd on here as we can, and we can have, I think we've got 5 now, we can have 1 more, and then we can rotate another 4 in and out. So I'll kind of go around. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this, because more
you talk, I'll drive.
Okay. So anyway, so it is the launch of the 200th. We probably should go to Mike first. So Mike, how's it going?
Hello.
So you've basically, at least all the domestic stuff you shipped out, right?
All the backer stuff is shipped now. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So I haven't got mine yet, but I know it's got to be anytime soon. I don't know, anyone else here with us right now? Did anyone get theirs yet?
Yeah, creator books haven't even shipped yet. There's a whole other. Yeah, we had to order some different shipping supplies and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, that's good to know.
They'll be going out this week. I'm just waiting on the new shipment of new shipping materials, and then creators will get all their books too.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I wasn't sure. So then I
have a friend who received theirs locally and was like, "Hey, check out your comic," and I was like, "Oh, cool! I haven't even seen it." So I didn't really get to
I know.
read it,
It sucks that it happened that way.
No, it was actually really cool. It came out really good, so I think it will be worth the wait, you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I saw there's a few people that are in the chats that can't make it for one reason or other that are in the Anthology too. I just saw Yanimal pop up. So I mean, there's links in the private group. So if anyone is in the 100th Anthology, you can click on that. You can come in.
Message me on Facebook, and I'll get you a link if you don't see that.
Yeah. So, so all of us here are creators. We're featured in the 100s Anthology number 2, and I am seeing all over the internet people are getting it. People are liking it. It's super exciting. So I can't wait to see mine. I'm guessing maybe I don't know if my comic store has theirs yet, because they ordered some copies. We're going to do a release party, I think, on the 26th in Surprise, Arizona. I'm going to see. I'm trying to get. Abel Parsons, Abe Sapien over there too, because I know he's local to Arizona and he's featured in the book too. So if he can make it, you might be able to come out and see both me and Abel. So that'll be kind of cool. So any other people doing some events? I think Pepper, you said that you are going to be doing something with kind of a release thing with the comic.
Yeah. So I was just recently in the mountain area of Colorado, Glenwood Springs. Helping out a comic book store, actually moving locations. They're doing a grand reopening of the store this weekend coming up. So they're going to be doing the Anthology launch that weekend.
Awesome.
So, and that's Tesseract Comics, actually. One of the people that's actually in the Anthology is one of the sponsor type. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, I don't know if is Surprise Comics one of those or not. I know they.
Yeah, they are. I shipped them all out at the end of last week. So if the one has them, then the others should probably be getting them soon too.
Yeah, so I don't know if I should go down there and check it out. If I should just wait till I get my copy, or I'm kind of anxious to see it. So
go down there, check it out.
Just flip through it. That's cool.
So I mean, I know you've still got a few things to ship out and everything, Mike, but it's got to be sort of a relief to get the bulk of that stuff out there finally.
Yeah, it's I'm a completionist, so for me, like I'm not gonna be satisfied until you guys get your books. Like
Well, that's good.
I thought I was gonna feel relieved when I shipped the last of the backer stuff, and I didn't at all. I'm like, okay, there's still more work to do. But yeah, it's at least I could see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point too. And I mean, because you've done Kickstarters before, and this was the first one that I actually had to fulfill the rewards. I had no idea what I was in for with that. That was nuts. So yeah, I'm relieved that part's over for sure.
So it's probably too early to talk about volume 3.
Oh God.
Oh man.
Hey, if anybody wants to do it, I mean,
Yeah,
go
no,
for
I
it.
figured you were going to probably put that call out because you have done it twice, and I know it's so like taxing. I mean, I've seen all you go through. So, but
Yeah.
I want you to know personally, me, and I think I can speak for everyone here and everyone else is, we're just super impressed, and we're just so thankful that you handled this whole thing because you just did an excellent job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Everything from start to finish. I mean, I from everything I've seen, I haven't seen the physical book yet, but everyone says it seems like they're super happy with it and everything.
Pretty cool. I dig it. I think it turned out pretty good. Everybody's work looks so awesome in there. And the matte pages too. I think that's what I love the most from compared like the production wise from this one to the last one. Those matte pages, everyone's inks just show up so beautifully in that. It's just the dark rich blacks in there and the gray tones. It's just perfect.
Yeah, I don't know why more of the print on demand companies don't offer that.
Yeah, it's strange, especially since black and white is so popular,
Yeah, I
think it's because there's this perception among non-designers that gloss is better.
Gloss is
and
shiny.
That's nothing you'll ever hear a graphic designer worth their salt say, like, "Oh, we should use gloss," like, because we're always pushing matte. Like, but unfortunately, the stock's cheaper to do gloss because everybody wants gloss. So even though it's a more expensive process, they can order it in bulk better.
Yeah.
They have everything calibrated for it. So it's like, if you're asking for matte, it's kind of like asking for recycled. Like recycled.
Right. You mean the cheap stuff? What?
but it's more expensive because everybody wants new and nobody wants recycled, even though recycled looks awesome.
Yeah.
Pay more.
I thought I saw I don't know, because we went through Comics Wellspring, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if it was Comics Wellspring or another company, but I thought somebody just put out a print on demand book that was on like a newsprint or something similar to a newsprint. Is that
I'm not sure. I know Alterna. I don't know the specifics, but I know Alterna has been talking about offering like you could print
I
through
think they've
them.
already implemented that. That's their partnership program.
Right. Maybe something like that, or I don't know. I'd be interested though.
Yeah, because I could swear that somebody had mentioned something like that, and I was pretty sure that they went print on demand, but I don't know. But
well, that would be a game changer if there was a place like that. A lot of people are always asking for newsprint.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, I've got this book. It's a Tank Girl book. It's a recent one, and it's not newsprint, but it's like a natural stock, and it's
cool.
It's way it's better quality than newsprint, but it's got that feel. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And the whole comic is like, even the cover, it doesn't even have the glossy cover. It just got the nice, kind of natural paper. I mean, it's just, I just like to see more of that kind of stuff.
I miss stuff like that.
Just speaking of it, if you guys ever want to just do, like, just for the sheer sake of looking at beautiful paper, go to the French Paper Co.
Oh, you know what? In my mastermind group, because I was doing Inktober, and I was talking, and they know whoever is the owner of French Paper, they just made an introduction. I gotta check my email and contact them, but because they were saying how it would be cool if I was to use their black paper for my Inktober stuff.
Oh, cool!
I'm doing sort of this negative Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, they're like that. Like so in the kind of high end event poster world, like this is where you get your stock. So like
I'm gonna check this out.
like
Okay.
that
So-
like rad like cardboard stock and all that.
Yeah. I've been looking
but-
for something like this because I can do some really decent printing on my home printer, but I'm limited by the paper that I have.
Yeah, and then the annoying thing is if you get those Acme novelty books, like the interior paper is all French paper, which is crazy expensive to do. But it's
they partnered with who's the dude? Who's the designer, Josh?
Draplin?
No, they've done stuff with Draplin, but there's they're not in house, but there's a
like DKNG or
no, like David Plunkett, and I'm looking through. I've got a bunch of stuff from them. Anyway, they go to Adobe Max. French paper goes to Adobe Max.
Yeah.
And gives away awesome posters all the time. I've got 2 big giant prints that they had.
No, what I love is like that it's the French paper booth because like there's just a line and like you're like who's showing up? No one. Just
Right.
French paper.
Oh, it's CSA Images.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, CSA. They're the guys that
Did they?
if you haven't seen CSA, here's like some books that they do. Let's see if I can get. So they just do like these like incredible looking things, and they have like vector stock, but it's vector stock that's been scanned in from like 30s, 40s, and 50s illustrations.
Yeah.
So also if you have a project, you can log in and use CSA for free. You use French paper in the project.
Wow.
See, I honestly didn't know that they were that big of a deal because I mean I'm just looking at the email right now. Is it Brian French? Is he the owner or is it?
Yeah, it's like the largest family-owned paper mill in the world, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're literally the like. I mean, if you in my daydream, that's what my interior pages would be.
Okay. Wow. Because so yeah. I mean I didn't even know when they said they said they were going to give me an introduction to the guy. So I definitely have to.
Wow. Yeah. Follow.
Yeah, because I already got the email right here that he hasn't responded yet, but I should follow up and.
Yes, and then try to collaborate and see if he'd be interested in French paper shout out for free interior papers.
There you go.
Well, the thing was because what
SKU number 98754, please, if you can.
Because I don't know if anyone had ever seen the stuff that I was doing for like March of Robots. Well, if you watch my video, I think even the most recent one, I filmed all of those. So whenever I need to talk or do a video, I'll just put one of those videos out of me doing those robots on the blueprint. They look like blueprints, but they're blue paper, white ink on blue paper. And then so I wanted to collect those, but the problem is if I do something like that, unless it's screen print, it has to be full color,
Oh, yeah.
because just, so I thought, well, that's what kind of made me think that, oh, that's cool.
Huh.
That's what made me think that I should do this white on black. I don't know if I have any of them with me. So this is the one I just
that's
posted
sweet.
today.
I like that.
So
nice.
Yeah.
I love taking all this stuff off. I don't even know how does this one open? Oh, there we go.
So, but yeah, I don't know, because I'd like to put together a nice book of, if I can ever do the. Where did you get those, Corey?
Adobe Max.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
This is at the French paper booth. They always have weird stuff like every time.
Okay.
This is really just like 50 Draplin postcards.
But
Yeah, so I met him at Phoenix Design Week, which is actually this week in the next one, and I think the headline speaker is going to be Rob Zilla, which we saw when we went to Creative South. Corey,
Rob's a great speaker.
so that'll be kind of cool. And I got my booth set up. I tested it out and everything. We're going to put out a video it'll be an exclusive Patreon video of me setting up that booth and everything. But so yeah, I'm getting ready for that, and then I've got another event coming up. So it's like oh, that's cool.
I love it.
Awesome.
So we got.
You can keep talking. I'm just going to keep showing stuff.
Oh yeah. So I see.
Be like the other stream with the action figures and the little views.
Yeah, I know. I'm half tempted to like pull out just like building stories and just start going through all the...
But I see Peter in the chat. Peter, if you want to go ahead and pop on, there should be a link in the Anthology, the Facebook group and everything. So if you want to pop in there, anyone else who's in the 100s Anthology too, which that's kind of what we're celebrating, as well as the 200th episode. We don't really have a topic today. I just figured, since it's a special episode, but if we talk about anything, I guess we could just talk, since it is 200th episode, we can kind of maybe just talk a little bit about, how far we've come, I guess, with this whole thing, like kind of how all this started. I mean, for me, I was watching, I remember watching Josh and Kevin on the Big Illustration Party Time, and then that led to, the Art and Story, which Kevin was also on, and then Kevin started the 100 Days, and that's what sparked all this. So, but yeah, it's hard to believe we've been doing this for like 200 episodes. So,
I know.
Legacy continues.
So many lives. Thank you guys for the no, I'm just messing around. No, it is cool. Like it's cool to have done 200 of these things, and I still remember being like super nervous before doing the first one when Kevin like asked me, he was like, "Hey, you should come on with me and Jeff and Scott," and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not really somebody to do that thing, because I was just like starting YouTube and stuff like that. And then the second I did it, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, because I get a ton of work done, and I get to kind of hang out and talk shop with like Scott and like whoever else is on, and it's super fun. Like, it's really fun. And so it's just been such a really cool kind of thing to do weekly, to kind of have a little artist hangout where we get to talk shop about art, and then also kind of touch base with like the whole hundreds community, which has just been so supportive of the Artcasters too. So that's been really cool. It's been a fun adventure, and I'm kind of stoked that we've stayed pretty consistent with it too. So. Oh,
you must have. I keep
you keep doing it. We keep both clicking on Peter at the same time.
Yeah, Corey and I both have control, so I try to bring Peter in at the same time. We were clicking them off. So how's it going, Peter? I don't know.
Hey guys.
Oh, hey. We hear you, but you're. Oh, there you go.
Am I frozen? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going in 1 frame per minute, but we can hear you.
But I've enlarged it so that now each pixel is about an inch on everyone's screen.
Awesome.
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's what counts. So what you been up to, guys?
We were just talking about sort of our kind of the history of I guess the 100s, and how the earliest thing I can remember is going back to like Big Illustration Party Time, and then the stuff that Kevin was doing with like the Mini Comics Dump Truck, and then the 100 Days of Making Comics and all that kind of stuff. So we were talking about that, but I'm kind of curious what everyone's working on. Now that it's been a while since we wrapped up the artwork, but now that the books have started shipping and everything.
Yeah.
Well, we know what Josh is working on, but he's about ready to wrap that thing up. So
that's awesome.
So I'm curious, Josh, once this thing wraps, well, I guess once it wraps up, you're going to be doing a lot of promotion and stuff like that. But I don't know. Have you given any thought to? Are you going to give yourself time before you jump into the next book, or
he's immediately going to start an animated short film?
Yeah, Corey keeps trying to get him to do that.
I don't know. I think that like. Right now, I just want to get this thing done, and then once the last page is done, I know that that's not really the last page because then I have to do interiors, author page, start doing layout, and putting together the book design and stuff. Because like ideally, before I even get to laying out a Kickstarter, I want to have the entire book done and probably even a proof, so that like when I run the Kickstarter, I know it's going to be good. Because I don't want to be running the Kickstarter while I'm getting a proof from the printer, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and then be like, oh, you know that thing I said I'd send you guys, it's not going to look so great, you know? So I want to make sure everything's like set and ready to go. So that's going to be like another few months of work, I'd imagine. And then like coming up with a really good marketing game plan. And hopefully, like one thing I'd like to do theoretically, and I think it's possible, but I want to do like a whole series of vlogs from the point of finishing a book, because there's a lot of vlogs like about people in the process of working on their books or people promoting their books, but I don't see a lot of people just going like, okay, so I've sent this out to 5 publishers and I've gotten 5 rejection letters.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm doing with like Kickstarter, and here's what I'm doing with like conventions, and here's what I'm doing to get reviews. And I think like there's a little bit of it, but I think it would be cool to have as like almost like a documentary style, like here's what you do when you're done with a book, because that can be a really exciting and depressing time at the same time, because you're taking on this mass project, but then the realities of the industry kind of come into play, and it can be really challenging. So I think that would be cool to document, and hopefully I won't be like full of it when I do it, you know what I mean, and be like, oh, I'm so awesome. I really want to show like all the frags. Like if I do like have a night where I'm like, I'm going to send this off to like my dream publisher, I really want to show like the day I get the letter back that's like, we won't touch this thing. I want to show all of that, like the whole
cool
underbelly of it. So, I mean, it could be interesting or not, but that's kind of the plan.
So you did say vlog and not blog, right? So this is going to be something you're going to do on YouTube then? Or?
Yeah. And I think a little more produced than some of the stuff I've done in the past, now that I know After Effects. However, now that I know After Effects, I'm not sure. I got to work out the logistics, because rendering, it's just a headache, man.
Yeah.
There's some ways to make that better. I can talk to you about that.
Corey, about ways to streamline it, because Corey's the After Effects genius, and also you're really good with thinking through automation and systems, like ways to kind of simplify. So maybe you can help me come up with a battle plan. That's another part of it. Sorry, I'm hogging it, and then we'll pass on. But Corey and I also are probably going to start working on with the 48-hour art check, like holding each other accountable to actually promoting our own work as if we were promoting someone else's, because we both talked about that as being a weakness. And so he's kind of going into an animated film and stuff like that, and kind of what to do with that, and I'll be trying to do that with a book. So
nice.
We've already kind of loosely talked about doing that. So
yeah, I've started with the animated short I just finished. I've been doing pretty good at that. With my children's book, I sent it to a few people, and then I stopped and started 6 more projects. So
that'll be a good one. Then we'll use that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm waiting to hear back from about 20 different film festivals to see if they're going to screen it. So
sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
cool.
Anyway.
So Josh, you're talking about getting back into YouTube. I know Mike seems like he's like kind of moving away from YouTube.
I'm like just in transition in general. It's been a rough year or so, and I've had a bunch of false starts kind of recently. I needed to kind of take a step back and ease back into everything a little bit slower. It was one of those like, oh, finally I got the time. Let me jump back in and do exactly what I was doing when I was at the peak of what I was doing, and it just collapsed in on itself. I wasn't ready for all of that. But I do want to come back. I do plan to do more videos. Probably nothing like what I used to do, though. I don't have that same kind of energy that I had in those videos to do all the effects and crazy cuts and all that. I am being held captive. It's true. I wasn't supposed to say that, though, and now they're going to get me. But yeah, I'm focused a lot more on just doing the work right now and kind of just not being bothered with everything else. That's just sort of where my head's at. I just really want to get a book out that's my own, and that's, my own kind of long form kind of thing. And been spending a lot of time doing the anthologies. And so I think after this, I'm going to probably get off social media for a little bit and just focus on getting this thing going, Yeah.
Well, hopefully you kind of make some headway, and then you'll return and to social media, and you'll have just tons of stuff under your belt and ready to.
Yeah, I hope so. It's just there's a lot of noise sometimes, and like when you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do and juggle a bunch of stuff, it's like just quieting everything else down is sometimes the better thing sometimes. So.
Yeah, I think I remember when you were putting up like the idea of like, should I, call the hundreds thing quits or continue with it? And it's just like thinking about it. It's like, look, the whole point of it's to serve your comic. So if it's not serving your comic, then cut it,
Yeah.
Same with social media and stuff. Like if you need to cut out, but don't get all Salinger on us and start eating like frozen peas. And,
no, I probably won't do that. Not at all.
Okay.
Well, it's funny too, because like the 100 days was going fine, and I've still been writing every day. I've still been drawing every day. It was just like, I don't know, that social aspect of almost like a performance as you're working. That's what was messing with me. It's like, I really just want to make my mistakes. I want to take my chances, do what it is that I'm doing, and kind of just be there with it, not try to explain why or that kind of thing. That was tripping me up. I'm actually, once the books are gone and there's nothing in here that I am accountable for keeping nice, I want to put up like a big tarp and just go crazy painting for a little while. Just like throwing paintbrushes at the canvas and stuff, like just weird experimental, expressionist art kind of stuff. Just get back in touch with my crazy romantic artist side, I guess.
Cool. So
everything.
So speaking of painting, we got somebody here that kind of mixes their own paints and makes their own paints. I see you working on that, Pepper. What else are you working on? And you can go into a little more about some of your experimentation and the stuff you're doing with with making your own paint, which I just think is so amazing. It's something that I would probably never ever do, but it's kind of fascinating to watch you do it.
Yeah. No, it's something that like when I started doing it, I've just gotten addicted to it. Like, I've been getting more and more involved in watercoloring and doing watercolor comics. I finished all the coloring for Clover Patch. I finished watercoloring for some Baby Zine Volume 3, which surprisingly enough is going to be printed on French paper.
Hey.
I have a good quality printer at my house, and I'm currently still in the process of digitally inking Campfire Stories of Lake Kiki Poppy Chapter 2 Part 1. A lot more work than I anticipated because it was like double the amount of pages that I was actually from the first one to the second one. So there's that. And then, I connected with someone, and now I think I'm actually making this like little kit where you roll a D20. For those of you who are not gamers, that's a 20-sided dice, and you basically make it's for kids and adults alike, and you basically roll for a scenario, roll for a character, and then you basically make a mini comic with that.
Huh.
So that's in the works. Still have a few kinks to get out with that, and that's supposed to be more for like family activity, creative writing, building, that sort of deal.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I've recently been. It's been a little while, a few weeks or a month maybe, but I've been working with my son on his game. So I'm starting to learn a little more about the kind of role-playing world. So I'm kind of anxious to kind of get back into doing like another, I don't know, what do they call, session or?
It just depends on the group. Honestly, it really does. There's some people who call them sessions. There's other people who call them like, like campaigns. It can be a lot of different things. It just depends on the group and what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of cool. It's something new that I haven't done before. Surprisingly, as much all the geeky stuff I'm into, that was one thing that I really never got into until now. So,
yeah, my mom gave me my first D&D books.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, like my mom and my grandmother definitely were like my introduction to comic books, geek culture, all of that stuff. So yeah.
We've got a question here.
Yeah.
So let me pull that up. Oh, where'd it go?
You pulled yourself up.
Yeah. So how do you respond to people who say you have too much time on your hands when you tell them about or show them the things that you have made?
Huh.
Oh wow.
I haven't encountered that.
Is that in context of actually hand making an item, or is that in context of drawing and having it printed?
My guess is I think we're talking about just any type of side project. So probably yes to all of those things.
Yeah. Smack him in the face.
Yeah. Just poke him in the eye.
I've actually been asked this fairly early on. Like when I did an event, like some mother came up to me and basically was like, how can you do this? Like, why do you have so much time on your hands? You're supposed to be like an adult. And I'm just like, I just do this in my free time. Like I didn't know how to respond. So I responded like the best way I could, but like it came across very insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's been a number of people that have talked about this in different ways. And I think it all dances around the idea that people who go out of their way to improve themselves or go out of their way to do extraordinary things. And I think anything that takes extra time, that is effort and hard work. And so I think most of the people in this community are doing extra stuff that you're not required to do. I think people feel like they should be doing those things, but they numb themselves to it. And so when they encounter someone who is not ignoring that call to action, it reminds them of their own guilt and their own remorse. And so I think oftentimes they try to diminish or attack to like downplay the fact that they know that they should be making something. They know that they should be doing something. And oftentimes, so it's kind of like, I remember Kevin talking about this, Josh and Scott have talked about this. A lot of you guys have talked about this, where you're just telling somebody like, oh yeah, I'm working on this thing, and then they're like, oh, I just don't have the time, or I couldn't do that. And it's like, I didn't require that of you. I didn't ask you, to do it. Like all of a sudden people start getting really defensive about it or really diminishing about it. And I think it has to do with the fact that most people know that they should be doing more than being entertained all the time. Being a consumer is great. I like being entertained. It's fun. But I think most human beings are aware of the fact that we are not meant to be passive. And so I don't worry about it. I just say, it's something that I do. And I feel like, I make the time to do it. I feel like it's important. And so that's how it happens.
Yeah.
I tend to think like it all stems from insecurity because like a perfect example is like, I've never been somebody who was athletic at all. And I started like working out like a year and a half ago. And I've gotten so used to the drawing comments, so it's like those kind of just almost fly by me because I just hear them all the time, where it's like, oh, I would do that if I had talent, that kind of thing.
Right.
Or you're so lucky that you could do that. And you're like, well, it's not so much luck, you know, but you get used to those. But then I noticed that every time I'll talk about like exercise, people get like people who don't exercise get really defensive and weird about it. And you're like, look, I'm not telling you to exercise. Like, I don't care. Like, that's your life. Like, that's good. It's just something I'm doing. And they're like, yeah, but I just don't have the time. And I'm like, I never even asked if you have the time. Like, it's just like an instant defense, because I think most people at their core know they should be doing something active for their own health. It's the same thing with art. Like, you should be making cool stuff. And whether that's like, you know, making comics or whatever your call is, like maybe it's music, maybe it's like, maybe it is just like literally like being a triathlete or something. I don't know, whatever the person's calling is. If they're ignoring it, it's like there's like this beckoning like voice. Yeah, it's like, to me, when I hear that, I feel like I'm hearing the voice of the resistance they're giving into. Like, I'm like, oh, you're telling me all the excuses you listen to and justify you not doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's it, where it's like, wow, where do you get all that time? Oh, yeah, that's right. Time works different for me than it does for you. It's just,
I actually live close to a black hole, and so I gather more time than you do.
Yeah, I mean, me and like, you know, my doctor friend that I skateboard over to his house, we just travel through time all the time. That's how I get the time to do comics. Anyhow, but yeah, it is interesting. Have you guys experienced that?
I've kind of got to me, it's almost like the opposite, where when people talk about like, say if somebody's talking about all this, you know, I know people who watch a lot of sports and they keep up on all these stats and all these different things. And to me, I'm thinking like, how do you have so much time on your hands that you can watch all this stuff? And the thing about sports, unlike say like a movie or whatever, sports, you kind of have to watch live. It's not like you can watch it at your leisure. You're kind of at the mercy of their schedule and everything. And I just could not live my life like that. I've got to, you know, if any entertainment that I take in, which isn't a lot, like I think the only thing really I've been watching is The Dark Crystal, but it's like in little chunks. I'll watch like half hour before I fall asleep. And then, you know, so it's just little bits and pieces there, because I'd rather, you know, as much as I like that kind of stuff, I'd rather be creating. So to me, when people, you know, talk about all this other stuff that they're either watching or, you know, whatever else they're doing that isn't something that they're actually putting into the world, more that they're taking in, it's like, how do you have the time? So it's just priorities, you know. So for me, but yeah, I mean, so it's all a matter of perspective and where you're coming from, and the people that are. Was it Frank that had this question, or was it Victor? I don't remember who had the. I don't remember.
Salazar Art Nation.
Okay, yeah. So that's right. So you know, to the person probably saying that just doesn't see any value in artwork or creating things or whatever, I'm guessing. Or maybe it's like Josh kind of said, where maybe they'd like to, but they, you know, if it's something you want to do, you'll be able to find time for it. There's time, but you have to make that time. So
yeah.
What about you guys? Anyone that hasn't weighed in that wants to?
It's funny because I think this actually kind of connects a little bit to something that I was talking with my wife about earlier. We have a friend who did our photography for our wedding, who's currently on a trip in Europe, and she's doing some gigs out there, doing a lot of photography. But she is going like all over that whole region. And one of the things she's been kind of doing in her free time is just talking with people from all these different countries, just about kind of their lives, like what life is like. That's like been the main topic of conversation that she's wanted to have. And they kind of compare and contrast, you know, like, well, what's normal life? What's a week like for you here in Denmark? What's a week like for you here in Amsterdam or whatever? And kind of compare and contrast. And it was interesting that she was saying today that one of the common similarities that she found, or the common differences, I should say, that people saw in Americans compared to everybody else that she met, was just how focused on work we are. So like their impressions when they meet Americans, from no matter who they are, what kind of class they are, anything like that, it's always, what's your job? What do you do? How long do you work? How much do you make? All that kind of stuff. So I get this impression that it could be something like that too. I mean, I know there's a lot of people in my family and circles of friends that you talk to them, and if what you're saying you spend your time on doesn't immediately equate to money in the bank at the end of the week, they just don't compute. They're just like, what are you doing? Like, come on, hustle, hustle, hustle. I got like 5 jobs and I get done with this thing and I go here and I go. They don't necessarily need it. It's just money, 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 money in the bank. That's all they understand. So to say that you're like pursuing your passion, or you're doing something that you believe in, something like that's just like, that's not a vocabulary they have. I don't know about Beanie Babies, but but Corey with the he's like you're like the man behind the curtain tonight.
I'm heckling everyone with the banners.
Awesome.
Pop-up version of Artcasters.
I mean,
Yeah, I think I get that impression too, because I have encountered those personality types, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that hustler type where they have like the 5 jobs, but they never really think outside of their box. Like I know somebody in my family who he's got so much like passion for games and creating. He just doesn't. It's like he doesn't see anything else that he could possibly do except continue to work at Walmart. That's it. That's
Right.
immediately where his whole vision ends. And I've tried to tell him like, hey man, work at a Barnes and Noble. That's like a little closer to the kinds of things that you like. You could have conversations about these books that you read with people and stuff. Doesn't compute. It's like, well, then I have to stop doing this and then I won't make money for a couple days. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's a comfort thing, but there's something, some kind of difference. I think a difference in personality or vision, something.
I think it's the dark side of capitalism, where it's like there's a real benefit to like a society built on capitalism and like competition and the idea of value being in money and stuff like that, and that honestly is a good drive. Like one thing that's forced me to do crazy things, like on being an art director and stuff like that, has been like the pursuit of money. At the same time, like that can't be the end all.
Right.
If that's the end all, like that's a really stupid pursuit, because like on your deathbed, like your bank account's not going to follow you.
No.
It's like, to me, just like there's got to be more than just that. The accumulation of wealth. And the other thing is, I just know too many crappy artists who've gotten very wealthy, and I'm like, and I know that like I don't admire the work, and it's like, that's not to say like belittle them, because it's anybody who's hustling in art and making $1. Like if you made 50 cents on art, hey, good for you. Like it's a hard thing to do. Regardless. But my point is, I just know they're like the wealth of something doesn't dictate the value of it to me, like in art, because I've just read too many crappy comics. I've read a lot of brilliant comics that didn't make $1. So it's like, to me, I'm like, I know there's value to it that goes outside of that, like that money chain, and it like I said, it can be really good. It can drive you to do really great things in art, especially in commercial art. But at the same time, if that's your end all, why are you in art? Like why even do art? Because they're the top echelon of graphic designers and illustrators. Doesn't compare that to like your average like divorce lawyer. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you want to make money, go into law, go into like get in a union and work your way up. Like do construction, work your way up to foreman. Like foreman's gonna make more money than most successful cartoonists alive.
If you're really into money, plumbing, be a plumber.
There you go. Yeah.
And that can't be automated.
Yeah, consistent work that is recession proof and it pays really decently. Or electrical work is really good.
Welding is another one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had a buddy who went into welding engineering, and that's pretty good. So,
or like funeral homes, people are always going to die.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean,
Hey,
We may get uploaded soon.
but anyhow, the point being, like, if you're in the arts, like, obviously there's something that's drawing you beyond money, and if you're in the arts for money, like, if that's what drove you to the arts, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think for the question that he was asking too about, what was it? Somebody said something like, how do you have the time for all of this? I would almost flip it and you know, well, because I don't have time for a lot of other things, you know, like it's not just, oh, I just have more time and I also do. It's never like that. Most artists, it's all sacrifice. It's like, well, I'm not going out on the weekends. I'm not going to the bar. I'm not keeping up on all the latest television shows or movies or sometimes friends and family. Like, I mean, it's like a job, you know, for most people, in addition to what's already a job, you know.
Yeah,
in those situations, I like trying to make people feel really uncomfortable. Like if you ask an awkward, uncomfortable question, I like to give you an answer that makes you feel super uncomfortable. And so, you know, if somebody's like, "How do you have the time?" You know, I just try to like come up with the most pitiful thing that I could possibly say, and then just stop talking and just look at them. You know, just like, I mean, my entire family is dead and I live alone off of the death benefits and
oh God.
you know, something like that. It was like when my wife and I were infertile and people would ask us stuff like, "Hey, when are you going to have more kids?" I would just try to say the most uncomfortable thing that I possibly could, because that's a weird question to ask. So just turn it on them and make them feel awkward. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like me and my husband, we were before the adoption process that we're going through, we actually tried surrogacy, and they're like, the first question that we got asked, so who's going to be the dad?
Right.
And we're like,
we both are?
What?
Right.
Like,
oh yeah,
we both are. And they're like, no, but are you just using one? Or are you just, I'm like,
yeah, we're kicking him out.
the reason why we're not doing this process because it's $150,000.
yeah.
And both of us would have been fertilizing an egg. But I mean, no, I totally get it. It's just, and then I like my first marriage, we had infertility issues too. So it's like, it's not like sometimes you just want to punch people in the throat.
Yeah.
It's just really like bad. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's really sad for some things that I've heard in my life. So
yeah, it's odd that some people, I don't know. To me, it goes back to kind of what Josh says. It says a lot about the person who asks those type of questions, that they didn't like think that all the way through. You know, it's like this. You didn't really think this through about how weird this question is. You know, whether it's whatever it's about. It's like, what are you saying about the person when you're asking a question like that? Like, do you not get that? Yeah. So anyway, so that's a good one. If anybody else has any questions, that was a good one. We went for a few minutes on that one.
I think there's another one that was posted.
Oh, did I miss it? Where was it?
Let me see here.
Here it goes.
Let me see. Chris Isaacson said it a little while back. When did you find out when I once had, yeah, there it is.
So when did you find out you can draw, as it was something that I could already do without studying? I had to explain that I had studied. Have you guys ever experienced that? Yeah, I think this goes along with that. I wish I was talented. I wish I had, you know, whatever. I was actually, so I teach, and I was on this trip, and I remember, good friend of mine, nice guy, and I don't think he had any ill intent with it, but I had to kind of call him up on it. Because we all teach in the communication department. And so like when people communicate in a weird way, I like to be like, that was strange. But like we were just sitting there in between meetings. And so I busted out my sketchbook and I started drawing, and he teaches writing. And he said, oh man, I wish I had that, you know, I wish I had that drive, you know, and I was like, dude, I don't have that drive. Like this is like a conscious choice that I made, you know. And he's like, oh yeah, I just really need to just sit down and write. And I'm like, yes, you do. And there's nothing magic about it. Like I didn't feel the urge to draw in my sketchbook. It was like, I have downtime. I have previously made a decision to do this whenever I have downtime. And he was like, okay, you know. But even him, and he's like a professional writer, was like, oh, I wish I had this just innate desire to improve my craft. And I was like, no one has that, you know, like that's not a thing. Like that's a choice you make over and over and over again, you know, or whatever. Anyway, I find that the muse or the inspired individual or that thing is always such a weird, it's always such a weird concept, as if there are some people that are creative and other people that are not creative.
Although sometimes it can be fun because you can just kind of play it up and just get like a nice ego hit from it. And be like, you're right. Like, I mean, I'm filled with the muse all the time.
Yep.
And I just do magic. I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know. I was born like there was like this guy like tried to kill me, and I ended up with a Z carved on my forehead for some reason. But anyhow, ever since then, I've been able to draw. It's great.
I was walking by the community pool, and this chick threw a sword at me, and all of a sudden, I've just this pillar of light follows me around, and you know my kitchen table turned round. It was strange.
Yeah,
this is great because I think it really just throws it back on how ridiculous that statement is, and I think. It's something like that. I mean, he's just going to register right away, like, oh, yeah, that was a dumb question I just asked, because and people don't think about it, you know. I mean, it's like no one, you know, when you're on a little league team, no one expects, oh, you're just going to be great, just right, you know, just from the beginning without any practice. Anything else, people understand that you need to practice to get good at something, but with like creative things, it's just like, oh no, it's magic. It just, you wake up and that's the way it is. And it's like when people say, you know, when did you start drawing? You know, one of the things I always come back with was, well, when did you stop? Because everyone, when they're younger, everyone is creative. Everyone draws in kindergarten and colors and stuff like that. Yeah. Some of us just don't stop.
Where it starts.
Yeah, some of us just don't stop, you know.
Mm-hmm. I was bitten by a were unicorn when I was 12.
A radioactive art creating spider.
A radioactive nib stabbed me in the arm, and I gained the proportionate abilities of a nib.
It must be a common factor that we're probably just stubborn. Like most artists are probably just really stubborn.
I agree with that.
Yeah, with that. Because you think about it, like most people kind of stop drawing when they're like, "Oh, this eye doesn't look like an eye," you know, and they're doing that transition from like symbolic drawing, which all kids kind of start drawing right, and then some idiot teacher comes along and goes, "A star. This is how you draw a star," and they start drawing the symbols, and they're like, "Okay, I got the symbol system worked out." And when they're trying to actually represent again, it's like most kids are just like, I just can't do it, and that's it. Right. Whereas there's these weird artist kids who are just like, nope, I'm just going to draw that over and over and over and over again until I nail it.
It's like all of those horrible YouTube channels that try to teach kids how to draw by like, okay, now draw the line that does this, and then they wait for the kid to draw the line. And I'm like, this is the absolute worst way to teach drawing. You're killing artists. Please shut your channel down.
Yeah. It's like those art channels that you're talking about. I equate that to Dora the Explorer or other preschool children cartoons. Like I mean, I have 4 younger siblings. Like there's like 20-year difference between me and my youngest sibling. So when I watched them, I had to watch those shows, and so it's like, hey, which one do you think needs to go into this square object? Like, you know, and then like there's a delay, and you're like, right there.
Dummy. Put the square in the square. You
I
idiot.
think SNL got hit with some sort of copyright thing because I can't find this anywhere. But they did an animated version of Dora the Explorer. It was one of the best things they've ever done, and then it just ceased to exist. So I think they got hit with something, but it looked exactly like it. It was just like that. It was like, where is the rock? Blink, blink, blink. It was funny. And then she started cursing and things. So I think whoever owns Dora came after her. But if anybody could find that clip, that would be awesome. Because I stopped looking, but it used to be around. Or I had some awesome fever dream that I should animate myself.
It was after you got bit by the radioactive nib.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh.
No, I honestly, going back to it, like my parents, like basically they tried to get me to do everything but drawing for a short time, and then my mom just literally like caved in. I was allowed to draw on my walls. I was allowed to do everything. I was just gonna do it regardless of how she felt. So, yeah. So when I do get questions like that, I just go, I don't know. I was like 4, and just like leave it at that. And they're like, what? It's just on how you have to deliver that answer to that question. It really truly is. Because you do have to give that knee-jerk reaction to the person who asked it, like going, "Oh, I was just rude." Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah,
and I feel like that kind of mentality can create this like mysticism around the field, so that like when young artists are trying to get into learning, they'll give up quicker than they would were they just to realize that like the only separation between them and like the greats is just a lot of hours of time. And it's like I think not everybody who like learns guitar is going to be Jimi Hendrix, but if you learn about Jimi Hendrix and realize he didn't just one day like pick up a Stratocaster and just start shredding these crazy riffs, like that didn't just happen like magically, like this, oh, I'm a genius and I found this thing and we connect and that's it. It's like he spent hours upon hours upon hours like learning scales, like running through those scales over and over again until he memorized them, and then like could kind of improvise with it. It's like so the point being, yeah, I mean, he definitely had an inclination, because there's not a lot of guitarists like that who can like, despite the amount of hours practiced, could do the same hours and probably aren't going to play to the level of Hendrix, but it's possible. And it's like, it's not like magic. It's just a crap load of hard work. And like, I think when people realize that, it's like, it can be scary, but it can also be liberating. I think it's scary if you're older and you gave up, I think it's liberating if you're like just entering in and you're like, even if you're older and you're entering in, then it's like, I think it's liberating to be like, oh, like the difference between me and that guy who's like drawing is just practice.
Yeah.
Like there's a knowledge gap and a practice gap.
There's not enough
time and focused effort.
Yeah. I don't think there's enough of that taught to kids in general. I remember in art school, we got the lecture like multiple times that like, well, only like 3% of you are going to make it or something like that. And like, they were really harsh about that. That was like the first lesson we got going into art schools. Most of you, it's not going to work out. All right. Anyway, so on to design, and I feel like they could have done a lot of kids a lot better if they would have taught them how to be persistent. I mean, the fundamentals, all that, it really doesn't matter if you're not persistent, So straight up telling people who are already kind of like, I don't know, should I get into art? Should I not get into art? I hope this works out. Oh, it's only going to work out for 3%. Well, geez, those must be the talented ones, I guess, does more harm than good. Oh yeah, totally.
You need to explain why it only works for those 3%, because some people are just going to give up, and I mean, and at least give them the option to be one of those 3%. What they have to do to be one of those 3%, right? Because really, a lot of it is, I mean, you have to really want it. You have to really put in the time. You have to want to be that 3%, or else, it's not going to happen. I mean, they just have to know that you've got to work at it. It's just not something that's going to be handed to you.
Right.
But,
I could see doing something like the 100 days on like an academic level, just they have that discipline of working every day. And okay, Johnny, failed. He missed his homework yesterday. All right, well, what happened? Why? What else? And help him.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, I think, would benefit people so much more. Because I mean, the fundamentals, all of that stuff, you could figure that stuff out, and you're not going to learn it in one class.
I'm part of a teaching group that developed a capstone course very similar to that. There are 3 projects. One project where it's a group project where you have to spend 400 hours making something in 3 months.
Wow.
And while you're doing that, you also have to spend 24 days straight making 24 things in a row, kind of like the sticker stamp.
Nice.
And then right after you're done with that, you have to spend 20 days in a row, spending a minimum of an hour a day making one big thing.
Sweet. That's valuable.
It's rad.
Young kids, really get going. That's awesome.
Yeah. Like there are a couple who have to take the class a couple times, but for the most part, like, it's like this experience where students are like, I hated that. And I had no idea that I had the ability to do that amount of work and to be that creative so consistently. And like, people are getting jobs by telling stories about this class. It's really cool because they're like, oh yeah, you get all those interview questions. What do you do in times of stress? Or, let me tell you about 3 months ago. And they tell these stories and they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, that's really impressive. It's a cool class. We've done it now 4 semesters.
Cool.
Pretty good results. So
that's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah, the only defense I'll make of that, like, kind of rallying the troops to the reality and being like, only 3% of you will do it. The type of personality that's going to be like, oh, only 3% I'm out, they're not going to do too great in art.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it is really not like a job field where, like, if you don't really want it, you're not really going to get it. Like, it's not a job field like where there's like a map, like a nursing degree or something, where it's like, okay, you get your certificate and then you go and like you look for an opening, and then there's an opening and you have the certificate, so there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It doesn't really work like that in art.
No.
So it requires a lot of tenacity. So I think, I mean, I'm not saying it's the right way to kind of present it, but I think the thinking behind presenting that is like winnowing the field, the people who are actually going to be able to use the degree. Because the kind of people who'd be like, only 3%, I don't know, like, they're not going to do too well.
Yeah.
With like the ambiguity of art. Now keep in mind, I think part of the false thinking of that is sometimes those people that get cut in a process like that could do better with a little encouragement along the way. So,
I think that's kind of a dangerous way, but I know people that, like, whether it's a portfolio review or whatever, they said, yeah, you're never gonna be able to make it in this business or whatever, and maybe some people, the idea is that by telling somebody that, then some certain amount of people are gonna be, well, I'll show you.
Well, and I think that's a different thing.
That's totally,
never be able to say whether somebody's gonna make it or not. Like, who are you?
Right. But I mean, it's kind of like, if somebody does say that, and and they come back and like, well, here's what I did. I'm a published comic book artist or whatever, and they show the person, and then maybe the person's like, that's awesome. That's I kind of say that because I'm hoping that people will kind of prove me wrong. So, but I could never, I could never do that. I could never tell somebody that. I mean, it's just like, but
like, one thing on the note of the like kind of super negative that encouraged me as a young cartoonist was like, I went to see Chris Ware lecture, and he was just like, somebody asked him like what it's like to do comics professionally, and he was like, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm only saying it because I know if you guys are cartoonists, like, this isn't going to phase you. But he's like, cartooning is a nightmare. It's like work. It's depressing. It's more hours put in than you get back in value for art.
Yeah.
And he's like, and if you need to do comics, you're going to do them, even though I said that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you how I do it. But before that, I just want you to know, you don't get to this point where you're like, oh, these are great. He's like, no. And he's like, I keep trying to meet cartoonists who figured it out and had it like easier than I do. And he's like, I've never come across one. And he mentioned, who did he mention? The guy who did the Darth Vader and Son books, Jeffrey Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying, like, because Jeffrey Brown was doing comics in Chicago and Ware's in Chicago, he's like looking at Jeffrey Brown's stuff because Jeffrey Brown would like send him mini comics. And he's like, this kid must like really love comics. He's like so loose and he's just kind of going for it. And then he met Jeffrey Brown, and Jeffrey Brown's like, I hate doing comics. What's wrong with me?
I've got a bunch of his comics too, actually. He does some fun stuff.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess, like, to me, I actually found that relieving because at the time I heard that, I was in the middle of my first comic, and I was like, this is way more work than I thought it was. Like, I was going through that whole thing of, like, the reality where you're like, when you really commit, and you're like, I'm going to make a good comic, it's like, it is way more than is possible to chew. And, like, it was so relieving to hear somebody who I really admire, who's just light years beyond me, who's like, no, it's a nightmare just doing pages.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what was the Kirby quote? It was something like "Comics will steal your soul, kid," or something like that. Or what was it?
Comics will break your heart, kid.
Break your heart, kid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because this kind of connects to what we were saying earlier. I don't get the oh wow, you must have a lot of time or anything, but I do get a lot of the oh, you must, like, you love this so much, you're so passionate about this. It's like you're not even working, and that like just makes me want to start slapping people. Like, no, I definitely feel like I'm working every day, like harder than I've ever worked in my life. Like what Ox just said, like it's so challenging. There's so much. Like I could have just gone off and been a writer, and then I'd have been done, like, you know, half the time faster, maybe even less. Or I could just be a penciler, and, you know, there's all kinds of ways you could break this down and you know, into smaller things. But no, like at least most of us here, we're going the full indie route. We want to make our comics, write it, draw it, all of it, you know. And I mean, it's not like even an ego thing. It's just in a weird way, I just want to. I don't even know if I enjoy it. I just have to, you know?
Yeah.
So I hate hearing that to me, that, oh, you must, you know, love this so much. It's like you're not even working. Is like that other question. It just gets under my skin. And I try to defend myself in a sense, or maybe not defend myself, but explain it in a way that it makes sense to other people. But it just doesn't get through. It's that whole thing of like, well, I mean, it's different from me. You know, I get up and I go to work every day. So you don't do that. Like, okay, yeah, I don't do that. But you try and do what I do and then tell me if it's not work. Oh, boy. Yeah, it's stressful and mentally stressful. Physically exhausting, too, actually, because you're not doing any physical exercise. It has its own kind of physical, it's taxing on you in a different way, in an inactivity kind of way. So you have to really adjust your life around this stuff if you actually want to do it for any long period of time. I learned that the hard way when my hand broke last year, for sure. So, yeah.
Okay, Matt Wood has a really good question. Okay, so the question is, how do each of you guys feel about the future of your industry or the kind of work that you do? What would you tell a beginner? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future? Either way, why? That's
good. And I just wanted to say, hey, Matt, how's it going? I don't know if I've seen Matt in the chat. He's in my mastermind group. So
nice.
Oh, cool.
And he's been on the Artcasters as a guest too. I think the last one, actually. So maybe he's just waiting for the next episode, and we took 2 weeks off. So. But you guys go ahead while I reread the question. So if anyone wants to chime in.
So
yeah.
So like, to me, like, there's two industries I work in, right? Like I'm an art director, and that's more in like graphic design in a field that seems pretty rife. And then I do freelance illustration and cartooning at home. And then I do comics for like no money. And I'll say for comics, I don't know if I see a future. It's a weird industry, and indie comics, just the reality of indie comics is they don't make money. There's some that do, anyone who's telling you there's this like thriving, booming indie comic scene where loads of people are making a healthy living doing it is probably lying. That's not to say there aren't people doing it, but it's just a very small percentage of people who are pulling any income from it. And then there's an even smaller percentage of people who that's their primary income. So that's comics. But for art direction, for illustration, for any creative field, like the thing is, you're really only as good as your next work. So like if I cease to be good at what I do, I will not have a comfortable job. And I probably won't have a job. And that's just creative. So creative is not an industry where you can like, I don't know, like coast on like on your laurels or like have worked somewhere for 25 years and coast on that. Cause you're literally, you're as good as the profit and you're as good as what you put out. So if what you're putting out doesn't make money, you'll be replaced. And if what you put out isn't good, isn't of quality, it's most likely not going to make money. So it's like a catch-22. So I don't think there's any security. So I know that's weird, but there's no future in art. But I love it, so I'm going to keep fighting and stay in it. You know,
Totally.
These windows, they're very small windows, but my point is like like one of the NCS meetings I went to, there was a Disney director who was talking about, well, you guys know how it is. You're only as good as your latest project. Somebody was up for an Oscar. So, you know what I mean? It's like, if that doesn't put you in a secure position, like, I don't know. I guess that's my point. I think growing, I think it'll continue because art's rad, but it's a tough industry. You know?
Yeah.
I will argue with that a little bit.
Good.
Just mainly because I just made a super depressing piece of work, and I've been trying to be more optimistic after that. But because I just spent 2 months of my life talking about how creatives get hosed in Hollywood deals. But my general view of things, so I'm a communication professional, and so I come from a background of communication in the field of like visual communication and marketing, and I've managed teams of salespeople, and I've managed marketing teams, and I've managed teams of graphic designers and photographers and everything in between. And what I've noticed is a company that does not communicate just goes out of business. And so I actually think there's a significant amount of work out there, but it might not be exactly what you want to do, which is why I'm such a huge proponent of doing personal projects and side projects. And I was having this conversation today with a number of students where it's like, at some point in time, if somebody gives you money, you try to get them the best thing that you can, but eventually you just do what they say. And sometimes they don't have great opinions on things, and so good clients are going to trust and listen to you for your expertise. But other clients that maybe have a very specific idea of what they want that you might disagree with or whatever, their money is just as green. And that's why you have side projects. And so for me, I've done a ton of work over the last 15 to 20 years that was really boring. And I mean, literally my first project out of college was to produce a video on how to use this paint chip repair kit. So by definition, I was filming paint drying, and then I spent weeks editing paint drying. Like the definition of boring. I wish that I could say that my next project was to film some sort of like fertilizer for a lawn so that I could say that I backed it up with like grass growing. But the stuff that you do for a living can still be informed by your creativity and the work that you're doing. But I do take issue with the idea that if you're not making money off the things that you value, that somehow the things that you are making are not valuable. So, I mean, I spend a significant amount of my time producing things that bring in very little income directly, but I have gotten a number of very decent jobs and promotions based on the fact that some people see the things that I make and then realize that there is a way that they could use that for their business, or that they could use my skills or my passion or my, ability to figure things out, to be able to market their service or their product. And it's been very, very lucrative for me from being able to provide for my family. I'm not loaded. I'm not sitting pretty. I live in the High Plains desert, hundreds of miles from anyone else, but I'm able to be comfortable because everyone needs to communicate, or else you don't know that they exist. And so it's not like I have spent the last couple decades drawing for a living, but I have spent the last couple decades using creativity to communicate companies' messages, and I don't think that's going to go away, because how else would you find out about anything?
Yeah, we're in a visual world too, so it's like, if you don't think visual communication matters, then maybe they should switch the internet to all text, and we'll see how well it does.
Jan's saying, I take it Corey didn't take the challenge of making free animations for a celebrities competition. If you're thinking of the celebrity I'm thinking of, I did not take that on, but I did take the opportunity to mock him on Twitter. So I don't know if that counts, but
is this a recent thing, or because
Shaq came out in conjunction with 3 TV networks and offered $500 to people who won the contest to animate his stories. And he got torn to shreds. And then the next day was like, I value you. And I can't remember, he upped the ante or something, but it was like, I can kind of understand Shaq not getting that, but I don't understand the 3 television networks that have paid for and produced professionally made cartoons for decades. And then, so I remember just saying several things like Shaq, I'd like you to come and play basketball in my front yard. And, if I think you did well, then I will give you $500.
I teach at a school with a lot of kids. They'll be good exposure.
Yeah.
Right? Just come play basketball for us. I'll give you free exposure to my campus.
I think the worst advice I think I've ever received was, if you want to make it in this industry, you have to do free work. And I was like, what?
No.
And they're like, for nonprofit, blah, blah. And I was just like, all right, I can understand nonprofit, but let's back up a second. Like, how much free work are you talking about? Like, I have rent, I have bills. I'm a trained print designer specifically. So for me, there's a lot of us, and I am not optimistic when I go for jobs. I'm very pessimistic when I go for them. I have to change my style pretty much to suit companies' needs all the time. I've made and remade so many different portfolios, resumes, just to try to get a leg up on other people. That is just, at this point, I just want to focus on comics and cartoons, and that's it. Like, I'm just, it's not that I'm done with the world that I'm supposed to be part of, but like, I went on and I got my master's degree in business. And I know the importance of having a very wide range set for some things, for going into what you guys also do. That I'm even thinking about getting just certifications to get even more skills, just so that I can continue to grow. I'm not saying that you can't be optimistic about the future of where all of us are. But if I have someone that's starting out, like in Colorado, there's a couple of places that offer comic book, like college level comic book courses, like how to make them, writing, art, sequential art, all of that stuff. And they'll come up to you at events and they'll be like, hey, let me look at your art. So I try not to tear them down. I think my first portfolio review right before graduating design school was the teacher pulled me aside and was like, we don't think you're actually going to do anything. Like, we think that you're just going to go out and you're going to be a smudge on our school record.
Wow.
And this is like, it was harsh words, but the thing is like, I looked at the teacher and I was like, you do realize that all the people that you did that were in my review that are saying this stuff lied to me when I did these projects that you're reviewing now for my final review. All these teachers did not say anything like this. And they're like, well, how do you know? And I was like, because I remember everything that they said to me about these projects. And I can tell you, none of them said the exact same thing. And none of them actually told me the truth in the class. And I think that's the biggest downfall with design school and art school is some teachers just want to be well liked and other teachers just like give it to you straight. And the ones that tell you exactly how it is and everything like that, those are going to be the ones that help you develop the most. Because they may seem rude, they may put other people down, they may make people like leave the field altogether, but they're not doing it from a horrible a horrible point of view. They're just doing it to make you realistic. I know I've met a couple of people and they're like, well, what's it like for design school? And I was like, pretty much take your emotional sensitivity level and just take it out. Like, just don't even just stop being sensitive because you can't. You really can't. You just have to take that and you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And if you can't do that, then you're going to have issues the entire time you're schooled. Like, you're just going to. And I mean, I know I'm probably at a soapbox, but I mean,
I like what you're saying. There's a wonderful book by Chip Kidd that everybody should read called The Cheese Monkeys. It's a wonderful book. And it was written like semi-autobiographically about his design teacher, who's like one of the reasons he leveled up in design to the level of being able to go to like NOF and be the creative director for 25 years.
Yeah.
So good. But it's all about a design teacher who actually teaches and ends up getting fired because he's too harsh. Like, so he's teaching kids advertising, gets them all on a bus with a Sharpie and like a big, sheet of like butcher paper. And he's like, okay, I want you guys to think of great advertisements that could like stop a car. Like, if you needed to stop a car, like what's going to make them stop? All right, start thinking about it. Don't write it yet though, because we're going to go somewhere and then write it then. Drops them all off. He's like, okay, the bus is leaving. How many of you have completely rethought what you're going to write? Because you have no ride back. And they're like, oh, and he's like, yeah, that's marketing. I'll see you guys when you get back.
Whoa.
That actually would be an excellent lesson, but you could never do that.
No.
You really can't. But I mean,
pretty awesome. You should be able to.
Definitely will make people at risk, but they're at the risk of student evals, which pretty much control the institution. So it's tough. It's a bag. I mean, it's a good system. It's a bad system.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that though.
Yeah, that is actually a good example. I mean, I've seen TV series like do that, like where it's like a sitcom where the kids are like the parents just like push the kids out the car door and like they speed off. But I mean, that actually would probably be the best thing. I'm not saying that I would enjoy the experience while going through it, but it definitely would. It definitely has its benefits and values for sure. But yeah.
But I mean, I've known both, like, because I taught with other teachers too, and it's like I've known both. I've known teachers that are just jerks, like, and they're not jerks because they want to better the kids. They're jerks because they're like sincerely jerks, like, because human beings teach, and so it's like an institution full of human beings teaching is going to have good people and bad people. I mean, it's just like any workplace. But then there's some teachers that will tell it to you straight, and you're not going to like it. And then there are other teachers that are just going to placate you. And it's like, I think the ones you want are the ones that are going to tell it to you straight. The ones that are a little better balanced with it, maybe less, like some of the older ones who give it to you straight just have stopped, like they left their F's, like, years ago, and they're like, I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to tell it straight. But the better teachers that are kind of care, but also want to not shatter you, like they'll give you truth, but they'll carry you along.
I think a good, I don't know if I strike this balance well, but I try to do both honesty and hope. Because I don't like the idea of like getting. I remember I was in high school and I was in a class and I started counting the number of times my trigonometry teacher told us we were going to fail versus the number of times he actually like taught math concepts, and it was like 10-1. I was like, this seems imbalanced. I wonder why I don't like math. I realize that's on me, but this seems like maybe not that. And so I've always tried to say, like give reasons. I feel like people, if they understand reasons for things, that you can endure a lot. Right. And so if somebody's just coming at you, like, just coming down and you have no idea what's going on, that's a whole different experience than somebody saying, now I'm about to critique what you're doing. And I just did this for the first time this semester today. Today was critique day for the first time for my students. And I said, now listen, I am critiquing your net worth, not your self-worth. I'm critiquing your ability to earn in the industry based on what you're producing. I'm not critiquing you as an individual or your worth or value, as a human being. And know that everything that I'm saying is something that you can improve on. And that's why I'm saying it, because I want you to get better, and I know that you can get better. The only difference between you and the professionals that are working right now is closing that gap, consistent, focused effort, and you got to add in a little bit of opportunity, which sometimes is out of your control, but you've got to get ready for that. And so I said, part of what we're doing today is I need you to have good professional reactions to critique when you leave this school, so that, because if your art director, your first job out of college, gives you a critique and your response is, okay, they're going to be like, what is going on? I'm like, we all feel like that, but you need to feel like that on the inside, not on the outside. And so break down in class, like you can break out into hives and cry and stuff, because this is a safe environment to do that, so that you don't do that in the future. Also, I talk about all the other benefits. So I talk about like being able to hear like professional vernacular describing design and aesthetic rules rather than unprofessional things. You'll never hear me say to a student like, that needs to pop more, or I'd like this to sing. I'm going to break down actual actionable critique with design principles, because that's how professionals communicate with each other.
Typeface. I'd like something contemporary, modern, cool. Can you make it modern, contemporary, viral?
Yeah.
I'd like to be more viral. I'm sorry.
I'd like to hire you to produce a viral video. Okay.
You also make it trendy. I just want a trendy viral video. What do you want the content to be? You're the artist. You're the creator.
Yeah, that's totally up to you.
No, I
later.
That, for like a way to hedge critiques, because my first semester teaching, I was coming from like, years of just working directly with art directors. So like getting just sincere, honest critiques where it's like, that hand looks weird, fix it, that kind of thing. And I just went into college and I had completely not remembered the gap between where I was at when I was like early 20s, going to college, and like early 30s, like having worked professionally for years and, knowing what a real crit is. So I just came in and was like, I'm going to give you the real critique that you would get in the industry because I'm coming from industry. And then I remember the first semester, I think I broke some people. Terrible. I didn't, because that wasn't the intent.
Right.
And of course my evaluation showed that, and I luckily learned from it because I read the evaluations and I was like, well, I don't want to break people. I don't want to ruin somebody's art career because so I started hedging it with exactly what Corey was saying, with a precursor before the critique, where I'd say that kind of thing. And it's amazing how receptive people are when you explain what you're doing before you do it instead of just cutting in. Because if you cut in, you can cut people down, and if you cut them down at that age, there may not be a way to recover. Luckily, I don't think I lost any students, but I swear, I felt so bad about that first semester because I was like, I'm just giving it to them straight. I'm doing, and I thought I was doing them a huge favor because it was like a lot of people are going to hold your hand through this process. I'm not going to be that teacher, and in retrospect, I was like, I still had that attitude, but I found a way to filter it in a way that was more productive for people. I think that's cool that Corey does that because that's good. He's not breaking students.
That's awesome.
I might be
possible. It's shocking.
Yeah, I might be. I don't know. My evaluations are like a lopsided inverted bell curve where you've got the extremes on either side and then no one in the middle comments.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, there was another question in here, but I don't think, Mike, did we hear from you on your optimism or pessimism about the future of the industry?
Oh, about the future of the industry. No, I mean, you guys kind of covered it pretty well. I think what I would say, because I think they were asking about a beginner, right? Like your advice for a beginner. So if that's the case and you're a beginner, I would say don't worry about the industry. Don't worry about the future even. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but if you like a thing, an art thing, I'll say an art thing. I'm not talking about planning your career. That's a whole different thing. But if you're really passionately drawn to art, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It doesn't matter what the trajectory is. Express yourself. Check out the medium. Explore it. Do it. Don't worry about the rest of that stuff. That's a little bit. I think if you're trying to learn, it's a little bit putting the cart before the horse kind of thing, because you never know. Even in a dying industry, if you loved a thing, maybe you're the one to bring it back when no one else is paying attention to it. Suddenly, oh look, this guy's doing comics, and no one's done a comic in years. This is amazing. I think about my buddy, a good friend of mine from college. He is super passionate about doing this weird found object art, and I mean there is no industry for gluing animal skulls into cigar boxes. There's no industry for that doesn't exist, but he does it very passionately, and he's had some opportunities come up where he's been able to meet some really cool, interesting artists that are kind of in that realm with him in a way, painters or concept artists or whatever that vibe on what he's doing. And he's gone off on different art retreats and stuff and off to different states to meet all these cool people and do all these cool things. There's no industry for that for him. He's not making any money for it, but it's enriching his life. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of the more important thing if you're talking about getting into art for an art reason. But if you're looking for a career, comics is it's risky. It's always up and down. I mean, we're on supposedly an upward trajectory now, but I mean, whoever thought that we were in the 90s too, and again in the 80s, and it's like a squiggle. You really don't know. But yeah, that's what I would say. If you're into art and you're young and you're just starting out, don't worry about the industry at all. The word industry shouldn't even be in your mouth. Just draw, burn through sketchbooks, make messes. I see way too many young people kind of worrying about their Instagram and their persona and their career and stuff too early, way too early, and maybe even putting work out too soon. Share your work with your friends and stuff, but you don't have to open up the Patreon a week after you get your first sketchbook.
That is one comment that I hear all the time, and it's always directed in a weird manner.
What's that?
Do you have a Patreon? It's always asked in this manner. It's like one of those things of like you kind of cringe a little because it's like I know so many people who do have Patreon and they don't even make $20 a month on it.
Yeah, it's rough.
And it's like and then I had to explain to someone, I was like, you have to realize when Patreon came out, there wasn't a lot of artists on it. So the ones that have been on there the longest are going to have the highest gross income per month. The premise of it is very good, very great, but for someone brand new, you're not going to get the pull. And there's a couple of artists that have actually touched bases on this because like they refuse to share other people's art and promote other artists. And they basically tell people, hey, no, you have to do the work. I'm not helping you do the work. I did the hard work. You have to do it too. And it's like, and Patreon is one of those things that it falls into that category for me.
Interesting.
I think like tying into what Mike was saying, it's like, I also think like if you're kind of young and you're getting into it, you also have to shoot really high because it's like if I had like a really realistic viewpoint of the industry before getting into the industry, I probably wouldn't have tried.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's close to impossible. And the way that I got in making a living as an illustrator was like kind of impossible in retrospect, but it makes perfect sense in my biography, right? And you're going to hear this about like tons of illustrators and cartoonists when you hear them in interviews and stuff like that. When you've talked with a ton on Artcasters, you know, and it's like there's this common narrative of like this weird sort of luck and opportunity meets effort and talent, and the talent's just time. Right. And ambition. So it's like if you're not being kind of ambitious and shooting a little bit for the moon, you're not going to like kind of break the atmosphere. Whereas if you're trying to like get to like Mars or something, you might get to the moon. Like
yeah. I used to say this thing all the time: shoot for the stars, but plan to land on solid ground. It's clunky, but it's like kind of a philosophy I liked to live by. People always used to accuse me of being overly ambitious and whatever, but I would explain like, look, I'm trying to hit that because maybe I'll hit something a little higher than I would have if I just, was like, whatever, I'm just fucking around,
Yeah, and I think like I think the key thing is just also like looking at other people's careers and reverse engineer what they did. You can't replicate it exactly, but if you reverse engineer it, you can end up in a better position, and this actually ties back to what Corey was talking about earlier too about personal projects, because like for my own career, I'm in a position where at my job, it's like I'm kind of at the ceiling. Like I'm not planning on like becoming a vice president or a president or a CEO or something of a company. I don't want to do finance, like with the non-creative stuff. So I'm kind of at the ceiling, but the way I got there wasn't by like working the system in an office to like work my way up. Like I got there by doing a bunch of creative projects. There were side projects, there were personal projects that put me in a position where when I was at an interview, I looked better than any of the other candidates, because all the other candidates were like, here's like a catalog I designed. And it's like, they've seen a million catalog designs and they all look generic. And I'm like, here's a comic I designed. Here's a design annual I was in. Here's like a t-shirt design book that I was interviewed for, because like they wanted my take on what makes a successful t-shirt design. Here's a million t-shirt designs that I concepted and created out of nowhere. Like I had all this stuff that like, had I only been doing the day job stuff, I would have never had. And all of that just came from like side projects, personal projects. And that gave me a huge heads up in the industry. And then like Corey was saying, it has this cyclical part to it where it's like, I also started getting sexier jobs that were professional because of the personal projects. So it's like I would do a t-shirt design for Threadless, and then suddenly I'm called by Wired magazine and they're like, we need a spot illustration for like a first-person shooter game, and we want it in your like pulpy style. And I'm like, cool, I get to draw stuff that I draw anyway. Like that constantly was happening, but it happened it's not like I planned it perfect, but it's like it did happen by doing like chasing your passions as well, which is what I meant by like you're only as good as your latest project. It's like if you are working in-house anywhere, even if it's Nickelodeon, if it's like a sexy job, if it's Disney, great, they own everything you're drawing. You need to be doing stuff outside that they don't own. Like you need to be doing that stuff because that's the stuff that keeps the life to your work when you're in-house. And I feel like if you lose that, that's what I was talking about with it is a competitive industry, and if you lose that edge of like being able to bring the creativity, you're not going to last in a creative position, or you'll get it. It'll get taken by somebody who is doing that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like to tell people to do, and I think this is something that I've done to some modicum of success, is along those lines, Josh, is imagine where you would like to be in 5 years. Like try to pick like the best situation you can think of in 5 years. And then what does that person look like? Like what have they accomplished? What projects have they finished? What portfolio pieces do they have? And then all you have to do is just start making those things.
Yeah.
You've got 5 years to get there, and you make those things. The other way to look at it, especially if you're coming right out of college, is your job in 5 years is going to be drastically different than the first job that you get out of college. So what's the best first job that you think you could get? And what does that person have in their resume? What does that person have in their portfolio? What skills and abilities does that person have? You've got several semesters to get there. So what are you going to do about it? Because it's not coursework.
And the thing is, like, and Mike and I, all of us have talked about this multiple times, but it's like there's this common thread of like people who have like the sexy jobs that we all want, like like I said, the guys who work at like the upper echelons of like these great corporations, even Marvel artists. Like I've met so many Marvel artists who are like, one day I'm going to do my graphic novel, and you're like, wait, but you've done like a million comics, and it's like, but I'm always doing other people's comics, but I'm working on this graphic novel. How long have you been? 25 years. It's crazy how much opportunity like a student has, or like a new artist has. Like you have the opportunity today to do something that a lot of those in-house guys that we all admire and we all look to, and we have collections of their art books and stuff. A lot of those guys want to do a graphic novel or do their own short comic, or do their own animation, right? A lot of animators would love to do their own animation.
Oh yeah.
But they're so busy animating. So it's like, once again, just you making the time and carving that out to do it in whatever circumstance you're in puts you in the same league, and actually puts you in a potential position where you could be making stuff that those people look at and go, gosh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
There's some great classic stories about Disney having Bill Plimpton as a guest speaker, and all the animators, and I'm talking like guys who trained under the 9 old men, were like, oh man, I'm kind of nervous about meeting Bill Plimpton. Like, he's so cool. It's like all the Disney
like
guys.
Rock star animator.
just doing animations on his own. It's like, and that's something they can all do. That's the thing that's weird, is like
Bill Plimpton found the way. Like he does it like 4 frames per second or something, I think, or 10. Like it's something really low.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 4 frames per second actually. But yeah, he found a way to make it doable. I mean, and that's kind of key. Maybe you can't do exactly like the Marvel, polished kind of quality type of comic by yourself on a monthly basis, but maybe there's something else that you could do if that's what if you're trying to replace that kind of job. There's always a way. There's always a way. You might have to pare down your expectations a little bit or make some sacrifices, but
yeah. Well, I don't know, guys. We're closing in on a couple hours. Do we got any closing thoughts, or is there anything else that we didn't touch on that we wanted to, quickly get out there? Anything?
There was a question. Victor had a question a long time ago that I kind of missed, but he was asking about the logistics of creating art products, as far as like shipping and selling and stuff like that. So I don't know if Mike and Scott, if you guys want to jump in real quick on some of those things, or if we want to leave that for another episode?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I definitely have experience in that, but I'm kind of like where to start, because it's, I mean, it's a complicated thing. I mean, the only thing that I would say right off the bat is that nowadays, I mean, I couldn't have a store of physical products like I have now without, all the resources that are just so easily available on the internet. I mean, you could source things so quickly, whereas before you had to, have like some kind of a, in with somebody, or you had to have like a wholesaler's kind of, I don't know if it was like a certificate or whatever it was, or just getting into these places. I mean, it just wasn't very difficult. And also, nowadays you can source products at a relatively small number at most places. Like if I wanted enamel pin, I mean, I think even enamel pins I got like, I think I had to purchase, it was a minimum of 100, which is quite a bit compared to like what you can do with a comic book now. I mean, there's places where you can get one printed comic if you want. And I mean, so like 100 enamel pins, it might sound like a lot, but I mean, before it would just be, you'd have to order thousands of these things, and you'd have to figure out how to turn them around and everything. So, I mean, just the amount of resources available to us, it's just amazing. And you can start off, if you're just starting off, the first place that I would start would be probably a place like, these print on demand places like a Printful or whatever thing, because you can kind of test the market. I mean, you can basically create a store without investing any money up front. It's just whatever time you need to create your products and everything, and you can slap them on, whether it's t-shirts or prints or mouse pads, all that kind of stuff, and they'll print them basically when somebody makes an order. So that's what I did with like t-shirts, and t-shirts are a hard sell for me, and maybe I haven't concentrated enough on them yet, but I'd like to give it another kind of another run with the t-shirt things. But right now but you also kind of have to go along lines with what works. And right now for me, the digital products are working, which is cool, because when I get a sale, I mean, it takes a long time to build these digital products, but once they're done and I get a sale, it's like, I mean, because I'll get through my website, through Squarespace, I will get an alert that I've made a sale. And then I'll always look, and if it's a physical product, I'm like, oh man, I got to ship this thing. Not that I'm trying to tell people not to order any of my physical products, because I will gladly ship that out to you. But when it's a digital product, it's like, I don't have to do anything. I just, I sold a avatar builder. I just made $20. Now granted, again, you have to factor in the amount of time. I don't know if I've quite made back all the time that I put into building these things, but so I don't know exactly who was the one that had the question. I'm sorry, I don't remember who that question was from. But I would start off with it was Victor that asked that question. So Victor, yeah, I would start off with maybe print on demand or whatever it is that you have, and the big part is I mean, you kind of do have to build that audience. I mean, I guess you could go and advertise that stuff without an audience. I mean, and if you want to, like Facebook ads, but there's a big learning curve, and there's a lot of stuff, and I'm not any good at that. But it's just all this stuff takes time to learn how to do and everything. But going back to the internet, I mean, all those resources are out there. If you really want to invest the time, figure out what you want to create, and that information is out there, whether it's where to source the products, how to build your website, or all this stuff. I mean, there's nothing you can't find on the internet. So hopefully that gives you a fairly good overview on kind of where to start and everything. And if you do have any questions, just send me an email or whatever. If there's something specific you want me to let you know, like where I get certain products or whatever, I'm happy to tell you any of that stuff. So
awesome. Can I get your client list? I'm just kidding. Those are most common email from listeners where they'd be like, hey, dude, I'm starting an illustration. You might give me your client list? I was like,
what?
Damn.
That's just wrong.
I don't know. Anyone else want to chime in on products and things like that?
I would just pass on the advice that that Gaz gave me a couple years ago. If you're thinking about starting your own store and getting into that stuff, just dive in, open it up. There's so much that you just can't learn until you start doing it, like just how all the things work and how you're going to get information from people and how to send it to them and where to bring your packages to send and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things to figure out that I think if you just kind of dive in, you're going to be forced to have to figure those things out, and it'll bring things to your attention. Yeah, make a beautiful mess of things. It's like a good way to put it. There's so much. You can't plan for everything. I think shipping, I think anybody can agree, shipping is worth looking into, though. Like, do your research on shipping.
Yeah.
Make sure you know exactly how much that's going to cost, or you will end up making nothing and maybe paying people to send them the products that they purchased from you, just because of the cost difference. That's a big one, and it can change drastically based on even little tiny increments. So it becomes important, like the weight of things, and that's why print on demand is. I agree with Scott. That's probably the best way to go because it's the lowest risk. You're not handling anything other than just making the work and uploading it, and that might be a good place to start. As soon as you start getting into actually housing the products yourself, I mean, look behind me. That's crazy. You don't want that. You don't want that day one. Look at all those boxes.
and I think a good indication of
they're all empty, by the way, but
they're just there to make you look important.
Yeah,
I just surround myself with empty boxes. I think a good way to measure this is I have a drawer full of stickers, right? Stickers are a significantly high margin and low cost and product that also are easy to ship and also are easy to store because they're not like a 3-pound book, right? And so like for like a one-time investment of a couple $100 or sometimes even fewer than that, depending on how many designs you have, you can have a ton of products. So I think that there are some things I hate inventory. I've always hated inventory, even before I got into doing illustration and stuff. I've always tried to be in businesses that don't involve physical inventory for a number of reasons. But I mean, you have like a really successful product will have like a 20% failure rate of a sell through of your entire run. And so you just have to like build into like most products that you're not going to sell a fifth of the things that you make. Yeah. And that's if you do really well. And so where does that go? And what do you do with that? And Josh has given me the side eye because that stat might be a little old, but I like looking at the math, not because I enjoy math, but because I think it helps you make decisions. And so if you look at the profit margin on a t-shirt that is print on demand versus the profit margin on a t-shirt where you do a bulk order run that's screen printed, it's the difference between making $2 versus making $17. But your break-even point is significantly different. So on print on demand, your break-even point is 0. You break even immediately because you have no initial outlay of cost. But your break-even point on a print run of t-shirts is significantly higher because you might have to do 250 t-shirts to get like a $6 run on a 4-color print or something. And at that price, you can sell it at $20 and you make $14 or whatever, but you don't make $14 on the first shirt you sell. You make $14 after you pay off that amount of money. And so if you have no audience, or if you don't have an audience that's used to buying from you, that print on demand means a significantly lower per product margin, but immediate break even point. If you have an audience that's used to buying for you, or you have a product that really starts picking up, or your risk is significantly lower because your outlay of cash is significantly less, then it makes sense to inventory that thing. So for me, like postcards and stickers, they store in very small areas, and they're very inexpensive to produce monetarily. They're time-wise, it takes time to make those designs, But for a few $100, you can. I'm going to have an inventory that lasts me for a while because, you know, I have a whole drawer full of that. And so print on demand doesn't make sense in that situation because my break even point, I think it was like 20 stickers or something.
Yeah.
You know, and so I like to do that math because I don't think that there is like a one size fits all, even for the same artist. I think there are different situations. Now for me, print on demand on a book would make a lot more sense right now with the audience that I have than doing like a 1,000 book print run on my first issue of my comic or something, because I don't have 1,000 people that are willing to spend a couple of bucks with me on something that they haven't read before. But I do have, you know, quite a few people that are like, I like that sticker and I can see it and I know that I like it and it's worth spending $4 on. And so there's kind of a different situation per product and per artist based on the audience that they have. And that balance is often just do the math, get out a Google spreadsheet and just figure out how much is it going to cost me per item, how much is it going to cost me initially, how many items do I have to sell based on the profit, and that'll help you decide whether or not you should do that at print on demand for a while, or we should do that kind of as an inventory situation. Because if you've ever tried to guess people's t-shirt sizes, you will find out that there is a significant number of errors that you can make. Oh, yeah. Having done this professionally for years, the same audience, the same exact people, for some reason I could never get the sizes right.
Yep.
I always have, you know, 40 extra smalls left over, or, you know, the next run, you know, I have like 60 triple XLs and I'm like, everybody was clamoring for triple XLs on the last one. And so that math drives me nuts. So like the fact that direct to garment printing and ink sublimation and ink inversion and that type of stuff exists now is like incredible.
Yeah. And like, I think like a good safe place is somewhere in between. Like I will say, nothing good happens in an art career if you wait till you know everything before you get. Yeah. Because like if everyone who does comics waited to know how to do comics, they'd never learn how to do comics. It's one of those things you kind of learn as you're going. There's a couple things you can learn before, but you're gonna think you know a bunch about comics, and then when you start comics, all these problems come up.
Oh yeah,
those problems are great because they're all learning experiences, and you start leveling up. But you never will level up until you actually do it. Yeah, and then similarly, like with products, like I literally like the first time I printed a run of promotional postcards, I had never printed a postcard in my life, and then I had to learn how to print postcards, and then I did the bleed wrong, and I had another run of postcards. So like you have to dip in and probably lose a little bit of money. So it's more, I think why the math's important is to make sure you're not losing your shirt. Like maybe you can lose a sock instead, you know, because the sock's a little easier to replace than your shirt. So just like small increments, like do bids that you know are like, you know, because I'm not a big fan of the idea of like those people who are like, just dive all in. I think if you have enough clues around you, maybe that's a good call to just go full bore in. But, you know, that's another thing too, is ask people around you, like if they buy what you make.
That's a good,
Not on Facebook, you know, because all your Facebook friends will be like, yeah. And then when it comes to Kickstarter, 4 of them will back it. Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing too, is like, be careful about, you know, when you poll your audience, for example, like those numbers hardly ever add up. I tried that with my store. I don't know how many different times. And I would do these print runs of specific prints, and I'm sitting on them, I'm waiting, and I'm like, all right, you know, 15 people said they wanted this one. I've sold 1. Where's the 14 others? You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I've heard the same from other people too. You can't know that. So at least for art prints, that kind of thing, I've gone by the kind of the guideline of keeping a low inventory. Never print like a ton of something until, you know, because it's better to sell out of it than to be stuck with a bunch of it. you could always print more.
And I mean, make sure you're asking for feedback from people who aren't necessarily going to sugarcoat. You know?
Right. Yeah.
There's a whole world of people who will be like, "That's great. That's great." Those are not the people you want to show something you're going to invest in.
Right.
You
Well,
know?
and even people that say they want to buy something can flake out and change their minds. That's actually something I've been thinking about lately is if you're intending on selling certain work, maybe like hold off on sharing it until it's ready to buy. Because a lot of, I think, art purchases are impulsive. And if you give people too much time to really think about whether they should buy it or not, they won't. You know, they wanted it right then and there. And now you've gone and taken a week, a month, or whatever to finally make it a print or a mug or whatever.
So you're trying to tell me that waiting a year after I finish my children's book and sharing daily videos of the process of making that a year ago is probably not a good idea?
That's probably all right. Well, because that's a book. That's like an experience that they're going to want to have, you know. But like just a static piece of art, I think.
But
no, but
like,
I still agree. No, I think I heard this in a marketing class, and it's always stuck with me. The only reason that people make a purchase is the way it makes them feel at the time that they put their money on the table. And that's really interesting because you look at like the amount of clothing racks that are shaped like exercise equipment. Like people never intended to buy a clothing rack. What they intended to do is get healthy, you know?
Interesting.
And so, you know, people don't like certain foods, but they like feeling like they're making a good decision when they buy certain foods,
sure, yeah.
you know, or whatever. And so it's kind of this idea of self-branding and self-identity and self-awareness. As far as that all goes, like that's the reason that people make purchases is because we're trying to feel a specific way. And we feel like the easiest action to take is to spend money.
Yeah. Huh. There you go.
We've got some...
It is one of those experiments that does require a little investment. So like what Mike was just describing is the advantage of doing it. Like if he hadn't polled people on Facebook and then done prints and then tried it, he wouldn't have had that real-time data to inform his decisions next time.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like you only really get that data by like ask the people around you before you do it. Maybe they'll have some tips. Half of them will be wrong too.
Totally.
Like, you know, there's guys who convention a lot, and they'll be like, "You do this at a convention, you're going to sell tons of stuff." And then you do it, and it's like it worked for them, it may not work for you because your thing's different. You know, so it's good to ask and then try.
Yeah.
I lost $450 at my first convention.
Yep.
It's a lot, but you know, at the same time, what is it? You got to spend money to make money is what they say too, right? So sometimes you have to kind of take those chances. I've been thinking about, you know, ways that you could even print comics through, you know, as cheap a means as possible to kind of skip the Kickstarter. Like if you really believe in your comic and you think you could sell it, just skip all of that because then you could get back to work faster. Just print the thing and you don't have to do all that advertising and marketing, promos and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a whole other thing. You have to have the money to be able to put it up in the first place. So that could be like, oh, do I take out a loan? Do I do a little side project to make some extra money? And that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of an interesting part of this whole product thing is if you look at what's going on, I recently told people that, oh yeah, I just submitted to like 20 film festivals. And everybody at work that I told that to, their initial response was, holy crap, how much did that cost? Or where did you come up with that money? But I mean, I've been working on this film for a couple months, and I've known that I was going to work on this film for even longer than that. And so I had a client job about 3 months ago, and that money sat in the bank. I earmarked it, you know. There have been other times, like my wife does this. She's going to Disneyland in 18 months, and she's putting away a certain amount of money every paycheck.
There you go.
And she'll pay in cash to do the things that she wants to do. And so if you want to do a run of enamel pins, if you want to print your comic, if you want to do whatever, like it's not like you wake up tomorrow and you're like, I've got $500 in the bank. You know,
Right.
like that's not how that works. You have to be like, all right, in 6 months, I'm going to do this. I've bid it out. I know it's going to cost X. So, you know, I've got 12 paychecks in between now and then. So what's
Right.
X divided by 12? That's
Yep.
how much you have to put away per paycheck
Yep.
to be able to pay for that thing when you're done with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just easy math. Like you do that and then you have the money and everybody thinks you're rich. And you're like, no, I'm not rich. I can use it as a spreadsheet to figure out how much money I need to save between now and then, right?
Back planning.
Yeah, or even if you can't do a projection like that of you know, you're going to make a specific amount, you could just have a dollar amount, you know, like I'm going to put this much towards that whenever I make any kind of money, you know, it could be commissions, it could be whatever. That's how I bought my printer. I knew that I wanted to be self-sustaining in that sense, that I didn't want to have to rely on a printer if I had to print really small runs or this or that. And it took me a little while, but I did it and I paid for it with my prints. That was like a principle that I set out to, is I was going to pay for that thing with my art. So I know it's going to take a while, but it was the only way I could justify it, like mentally. Like if I'm going to buy this thing, this big expensive thing, I'm at least going to pay for it with this. And it worked out. I mean, it took a while, but it worked out, and it's nice. I'm getting use out of it, and it helped me make some more money. So yeah, there's always ways. And I don't know. I kind of wanted to backtrack on something that we were talking about earlier about even starting a store and trying to sell your stuff. I think the good time to maybe think about that is when people are already asking you if you're selling stuff. And just like a general rule of thumb, I think that's a really good time to start thinking about it. And if that's not happening, maybe don't worry about it quite yet, because I feel like that's telling you that there's like an innate intrinsic audience already built in there for you. You know, if you put out a piece on social media and somebody's like, hey, you know, do you have a store? Do you have like a website? That would be a good time to start thinking about the store. If no one's doing that yet, I don't know. I feel like it's a little riskier in that, if you're in that position. What do you guys think about that?
I think the only caveat I would put on that is print on demand. The only risk that you have is the time that it takes to upload it.
Sure.
And so if you've got a design that you think hits a specific market or whatnot, I think put that up, you know, if you think it'll work, because your outlay of cash is low. Mm-hmm. I do say that with a little bit of warning though, because depending on how quickly you can turn stuff around, you can cut your production in half by uploading every design that you do or every whatever that you do. It can get really time consuming.
Yeah.
He says as he tries to make excuses for not uploading things to his store.
that comes that hits at home, and that's something we both probably are going to update
after the show.
Start doing our thing.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think we've gone a while. So
oh, definitely. Wow. I haven't been up this late in a long time. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that not everyone is on Pacific time. So for some of you guys, it's later. But actually, I think everyone here in the chat, we don't have any. We didn't get any international people, which I was hoping to get. But that's cool. You know, I mean,
Jan was on.
Yeah, we got Jan and Teresa.
I meant like, I'm in the chat.
Oh, in the chat. Yeah, on the show.
I was kind of hoping some of
those
folks would pop in here, but anyway, yeah. So before we start kind of making the rounds and telling everyone where they can find us, anything like that, is there anything else that anyone's got to let people? I mean, anything that we skipped over?
Oh yeah, Chris Isaacson's international. Oh, but you're not on the show, Chris.
Yeah.
So get out of here.
All right, so where do we? I guess I'm gonna kind of just start at the top. I don't know if everyone's view is the same as mine, but we'll start with now. Now I can't see.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's right. No, it's.
I didn't realize what you were saying. We'll go.
No, that's cool. We'll start with Josh.
All right,
Josh. Anything you want to promote? Any place you want to tell people where they can find you? Anything like that?
Yes. There are some things I'd like to promote. I was just trying to do some like quiet silence for a second. So you can check out my comic about faith and mental illness that I hand write, hand letter, hand ink, and then hand to you, hopefully someday in print. Until that day, it's available for your reading enjoyment at quarterlystories.com. And you can also go to topis.io and search for Quarterly Stories there and add it to your library if you want to help me find new readership and stuff. And I'm literally like, I just finished inking like the first panel for this page. So like once I'm done with this page, I think there's about a page left till I'm done. So that's kind of exciting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you guys checking it out and stuff, and I will be informing you guys of the whole process after it's done. Like, what do you do with interiors when they're done? So, yeah.
That's cool.
All right.
Yeah, this will transition well because Corey's next up, right, Scott?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so Corey, who we're going to talk to now, and I also do the 48-hour art check, which will be returning this week. So here's
awesome.
Yeah. You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. I don't have a ton of stuff to promote because I'm trying to not screen the thing I just finished publicly so that it has a chance at festivals. But if that doesn't make it into any of those, then I will show it for free. So that's not also something to promote. But I don't have anything to promote. You can go to my website and follow me on Twitter and Instagram and hang out with me there. I like talking to people on Twitter and Instagram about stuff. So if you catch it, you might be able to catch my horrible brick making attempt over the weekend before it goes away on my Instagram stories. That's about the only thing I've got. And now I've been talking, so I forgot to push this button. There we go. Scott, do you last?
Yeah, we'll skip me, and I'll go last, and we'll go to Mike. Hey, Mike. So you're getting close to wrapping up all the shipping and everything. You're
very close.
Working on comics and stuff, but I don't know if you have anything to promote, but let people know what you're working on or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess casually promoting. I'm not really trying to promote anything, but you could always find me on Instagram. That seems to be my go-to place when I'm feeling good about something I'm working on. I post it on Instagram, and if I'm in a groove where I want to share stuff, I do a lot of little videos and behind the scenes about how I do stuff. I am working on my comic, Sisyphine Complex. This is a concept of a cover that I've been working on for an ash can that I'm looking to put out by the end of the year.
Oh, cool.
It's a crazy ass comic. I'm very, very, very excited about it. Been writing it for, it's been a little over a year now. This is a concept that I kind of had since longer than that. And last year when Gaz and I were doing the 168, which was our ripoff of Corey and Josh's 48-hour art check, I finally it finally gelled, and I figured out what it was supposed to be and what I was trying to say with it. And since I've been back, since my hand is healed, it's been like just a flurry of ideas and passion, and just everything's kind of coming together. But I haven't been that public with it, which is kind of different from what I would normally do. So yes, I have some stuff to share, but I've been putting it behind my Patreon. So if anybody follows me on Patreon, I think that would be the place to go if you want to see this kind of stuff. So that would be patreon.com, I guess, /Mike Emirates. And I'm sharing a lot there, actually. You can get access to these videos that I was doing, which I've since stopped doing, but there's hours you could watch for months probably and never get through them all, because I talk and talk and talk at length about my writing process, art, my thoughts about what kind of storytelling and all that kind of stuff. So even though I'm not quite like public online, I am sharing stuff with my patrons. And I'm not necessarily plugging it. I just know some people are interested in what I'm doing. That would be the one place that you could actually see what it is that I'm actually doing. So yeah. That's it. I'm still writing, but I'm getting very close to finishing the first issue. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I should start working on pages very soon.
Cool. I'm excited about that ash can.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to try and print the whole thing myself too, which is why I was really excited to see that the paper company. I'm going to look at that and see if there's something that I can get there to make it cool.
Yeah.
You can get reams too,
or something.
You can get reams, and they do feed pretty okay through some printers. So,
okay.
And they're great for screen printing on.
Sweet. Yeah, I want to check that out, because I want to do something kind of neat for the ash can, just because, I don't know. That's just going to be fun.
Yeah. All right, Pepper, what about you? What's going on in your world?
Right now I'm like pretty much in super production mode. I have Campfire Series of Lake Kiki Poppy being inking phase right now. Lettering for Clover Patch. Trying to like save money here and there for new printer ink, new printer toner, so that I can refill my printer to print out some baby zines. I'm trying to make sure that we have everything okay. We've run into a few hiccups on our online store. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than that, you can pretty much find me on Instagram, YouTube now, Facebook, mainly Instagram and YouTube. Just look up Pepper DeLuca. I don't think there's very many of us.
Awesome. And as far as me, let's see, what do I got to promote? Yeah, I've got some events, but they're not really, they're like conferences and stuff, so it's not something you just show up. Other than on the 26th of this month, if you're in Arizona, we'll be doing, we'll kind of be promoting the release of the 100 Days of Maine Comics Anthology #2
Nice.
at Surprise Comics in Surprise, Arizona, and I'll be there signing those and all that kind of stuff. So, so that's what I got going on, and oh yeah, I got a Patreon now. I just launched it a couple weeks ago, and so far it's going pretty well. And I'm putting out some cool content on there and everything. And so go ahead and check that out. There's a video on there that kind of explains, what it's all about and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's that. And then other than that, so I'm a little rusty on this because we've been away for a little while, but so this is the Artcasters. If you want to know when we're going to be going live and all that stuff, and the way it usually works is it switches back and forth from Josh's channel to my channel. It's usually every week. We kind of took a break. I think it was on my channel last time we did it, and it's on my channel again. So it's not always the same. It can get a little confusing, but if you want to know, the best way to know when, where, all that stuff is to join the mailing list for the Artcasters. We don't spam you or anything like that. We usually just about 30 minutes ahead of when we're going to go live, we send out a notification, because YouTube's kind of iffy about whether they send out notifications and stuff. But if you join our mailing list, it's real easy. There's a link in the description of this video, and yeah, just join that, and we will send you out a newsletter, email with a link to the show, and you can join us in the chat or watch on YouTube or however you prefer. And yeah, that's that. And we'll be hopefully back to our regular schedule of weekly. We're not going to do typical. A lot of times we do it Thursday. I don't think we're going to do Thursday because we're doing tonight. So probably, I'm guessing next Thursday we'll be back, but who knows? And once again, in order to figure that out, just join our mailing list. And with that, I want to thank everyone that came on to help us celebrate this 200th episode, help us, kind of launch this anthology, which I'm so excited. I'm glad people are getting it in their hands, and I'm excited to see it for myself. Oh, look at that! Look at that! He's teasing me. I'm debating whether I want to go to the comic store and check it out, or if I want to just wait till I get my own copy. But yeah, but I am glad to see all the people that are getting theirs. Yeah, and if you didn't contribute to the Kickstarter, I believe a lot of us creators have copies of this book, because that's how we got paid, is in copies of the book. So you'll be able to purchase those from any of our websites or whatever, I assume, or you can knock on our doors or whatever. I would recommend knock on our door. Yeah. So also thanks to everyone in the chat. Yeah, it's great to be back live, and we will do this again next week. Thanks everyone again. And I think we're gonna sign off, and we'll see everyone next week for Artcasters 201. And I'm trying to, yeah, it's 200 episodes. So, all right, we'll see everyone. There's a little bit of a lag here.